For decades, action cinema has pushed the limits of what audiences believe is possible on screen, shattering glass, igniting fireballs, and sending bullets tearing through the air. But behind some of the most explosive moments ever captured on film lies a truth far more dangerous than moviegoers ever realized. Long before CGI dominated the industry, certain directors and producers turned to something far more extreme in their quest for realism. Real ammunition, real explosives, and real battlefield-grade firepower. This wasn't movie magic. It wasn't Hollywood smoke and mirrors. It was the genuine article live rounds, military-issue charges, and full-power detonation rigs, placed frighteningly close to actors and stunt performers. Some chose this path because budgets were low, others because digital effects barely existed, and a few simply believed authenticity mattered more than safety. Whatever the reason, these decisions created sets that felt less like sound stages and more like war zones. The stories from these productions are as jaw-dropping as they are unsettling. Actors dodged bullets that weren't blanks. Cameramen filmed while lying beside real explosives buried in the dirt. Entire crews worked under the constant threat that one misfire, one wrong cue, or one split-second mistake could change everything. And in several cases, injuries did happen, yet the footage remained in the final cut, forever preserved as part of cinematic history. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 15 such films. Some are cult classics, some are big-budget spectacles, and some are low-cost action shockers that pushed recklessness to new extremes. But all of them share one thing: the danger was real. And the people behind the camera were risking far more than their reputations. These are the movies that blurred the line between filmmaking and live combat. These are the stories Hollywood never promoted, but never erased. Fact 1. Red Scorpion 1988. Filmed in the deserts of Namibia during a period of political tension, Red Scorpion became notorious for its extreme approach to realism. Instead of manufactured pyrotechnics or controlled blanks, the production relied heavily on real military explosives sourced from local forces. Many of the film's massive fireballs and ground eruptions weren't created in a studio. They were full-power detonations that sent shockwaves through the sand and rattled the crew's equipment. What made this even more alarming was how close actors were placed to these blasts. Dolph Lundgren, starring as the Soviet super soldier, performed several scenes where explosions erupted mere meters behind him, with debris kicking up at lethal speeds. Crew members later claimed they could feel the heat from the detonations even while standing far back behind safety shields. In some instances, the explosions were so strong they caused cameras to shake off their mounts. There were also widespread reports that local military personnel fired live ammunition during long-distance shooting sequences. Although actors were not directly in the line of fire, the use of real bullets created an unpredictable environment far from the controlled conditions of a Hollywood set. Moments from these dangerous setups made it into the final cut, giving Red Scorpion its gritty, war-torn authenticity, at the cost of extreme risk to everyone on set. Fact 2. Rambo 3. 1988. As one of the biggest action films of its time, Rambo 3 didn't settle for half measures. The crew staged massive explosions using real military demolition charges, capable of sending plumes of smoke and rock into the sky with terrifying force. Many of these blasts erupted just behind Sylvester Stallone during combat scenes, creating a level of realism that CGI simply couldn't replicate in the late 80 seconds. One of the most shocking details from the production revealed that some of the gunfire echoing through the valley sequences wasn't made with blanks at all. Local weapon handlers used real ammunition for background fire, believing it would give the audio a more authentic, chaotic feel. While these rounds weren't directed at actors, they were still active bullets, traveling across the landscape where the crew was working. Stallone himself has mentioned in interviews that the explosions were uncomfortably close and far more intense than what would be permitted today. At one point, dirt and stones from a detonation struck him mid-shot, and the footage was kept in the movie. Rambo III may have delivered some of the most iconic imagery in action cinema, but the price was a production that frequently crossed into real danger. Fact 3. The Dogs of War, 1980. This mercenary thriller pushed realism to alarming heights when the production team decided to use actual live ammunition during some long-range and background shooting scenes. The decision was justified at the time as a way to capture the unpredictable, chaotic feel of real warfare. Something blanks, according to the filmmakers, couldn't fully emulate. Many scenes were filmed in Belize, where access to real military hardware was surprisingly easy. As a result, several sequences involving machine gun fire included genuine bullets being discharged into distant terrain. While actors were reportedly positioned away from the danger zone, the unpredictability of real ammo meant the situation was far from safe. Explosives used on set were also higher grade than those typically approved by Hollywood. Some blasts were so strong that nearby trees shook and shockwaves knocked over equipment that wasn't tied down. Crew members recalled moments when they questioned whether they should even be standing where they were told to stand. The raw power of these practical effects undeniably enhanced the film's gritty atmosphere, but it also cemented The Dogs of War as one of the most hazardous action productions of its era. Fact 4. Braddock, Missing in Action 3, 1988. The third installment in the Missing in Action series pushed its action sequences to extremes rarely seen in mid-budget productions. Instead of relying solely on staged pyrotechnics, the crew planted real explosive charges in the ground to simulate battlefield chaos. These weren't lightweight movie effects. Several were powerful enough to blast dirt 10 feet into the air, sending debris showering dangerously close to the actors. Chuck Norris performed several scenes in which explosions detonated behind him at distances far closer than modern safety guidelines would ever allow. Crew members later admitted that timing mistakes occasionally caused blasts to erupt earlier or harder than expected, forcing actors to react in genuine panic. Some of these real reactions can still be seen in the final film. Beyond the explosions, reports from the Filipino locations indicated that certain long-range firing shots used actual live rounds fired into remote jungle areas. While these weren't directed anywhere near cast members, the unpredictable trajectory of real bullets in dense terrain added a level of risk the production tried unsuccessfully to downplay. The film's gritty realism is undeniable, but it was achieved by pushing safety boundaries so far that even stunt teams later described parts of the shoot as recklessly authentic. Fact 5. Deadly Prey, 1987. Shot on a tiny budget with a crew willing to take shocking risks, Deadly Prey is infamous among action fans not only for its over-the-top violence, but for the extreme measures used to capture it. Several crew members confirmed that some of the gunfire sequences relied on real firearms loaded with live ammunition, fired into the surrounding woods to give the scenes a raw, chaotic sound that low-budget effects couldn't replicate. Lead actor Ted Pryor sprinted, rolled, and fought through areas where live fire had taken place just moments earlier. The lack of strict safety controls meant nobody could guarantee that ricochets wouldn't occur, or that the rounds wouldn't strike hidden rocks or metal fragments. The movie's trademark dirt explosions were also created using actual detonation charges, some of which fired debris unpredictably in all directions. Because of the film's breakneck shooting schedule, crew members were often forced to improvise on the spot, leading to several incidents where explosions ignited too close to performers. Yet the footage was retained, giving Deadly Prey an intensity far beyond what its budget suggested, achieved through methods no modern production would dare repeat. Fact 6. The Wild Geese, 1978. This classic mercenary film earned its gritty reputation in part because the production made extensive use of real military-grade explosives and authentic weaponry. Shot largely in South Africa during a volatile political era, the filmmakers relied on local experts who supplied them with hardware far more powerful than standard film pyrotechnics. Many of the explosions seen during the climactic firefight weren't controlled studio blasts. They were the same detonation charges used for real battlefield training. Actors, including Richard Burton and Roger Moore, were placed shockingly close to these eruptions, with some blasts sending chunks of earth flying past them at high speed. Several stunt performers later admitted that they felt genuine fear during these scenes, knowing that one mistimed detonation could have catastrophic consequences. In addition to the explosives, several background scenes involving heavy machine guns used live firing into open terrain to create authentic smoke, recoil, and muzzle flash patterns. Even though actors weren't in the line of fire, the sheer presence of real bullets on set introduced risks that no major film would accept today. The result is a film that looks fiercely authentic, but only because the danger behind the camera was just as real as what appeared on screen. Fact 7. The Beast of War, 1988. Set in the rugged Afghan desert, The Beast of War aimed for an almost documentary-level realism, and the production's methods reflected this ambition. Instead of relying on imitation blasts or lightweight pyrotechnics, the crew used authentic, high-powered explosive charges to simulate tank fire and ground bombardments. These charges produced shockwaves strong enough to rattle the armored vehicle used as the film's central prop. The most alarming aspect was the proximity of these explosions to the cast. Actors found themselves performing intense emotional scenes just seconds before or after full-force detonations erupting only meters away. Several crew members later recalled that the tank itself visibly shook under the concussive force, something that only real explosives could achieve. There were also repeated claims from crew that live rounds were fired during long-range shots to capture realistic muzzle flashes and distant impact bursts. Although the main actors weren't placed directly in harm's way, the inherent unpredictability of using real ammunition in open desert terrain meant the risk was still considerable. The end result is a film widely praised for its authenticity, but that authenticity came from pushing the cast and crew into situations closer to actual combat than standard filmmaking. Fact 8. Platoon, 1986. Oliver Stone's Oscar-winning Vietnam War epic is celebrated for its raw realism, and a key part of that realism came from the dangerous lengths the production went to. Stone, a Vietnam veteran himself, insisted on using true military-style explosives during several ambush and firefight scenes. These weren't toned-down cinematic charges. They were powerful enough to send burning debris spiraling into the air. Actors like Charlie Sheen and Willem Dafoe performed while explosions erupted around them, often within steps of where they were standing. Multiple crew members shared that the blasts were so intense they could feel the heat and concussion hit their bodies. The film's iconic final battle, complete with walls of flame and ground eruptions, was filmed with large-scale detonations that would never pass today's safety standards. During some wide shots, Stone also allowed the use of live tracer rounds fired into distant tree lines for authentic streaking light and impact flashes. Even though these rounds weren't fired near actors, their use still introduced significant risk, especially in a dense jungle environment where ricochets are unpredictable. The realism audiences praised came at the cost of pushing the cast to operate in conditions that bordered on actual combat. Fact 9. The Border, 1982. This crime-action drama starring Jack Nicholson is not widely remembered for its action, but behind the scenes it concealed one of the most dangerous production decisions of its era. To create the border-crossing shootouts and desert ambush sequences, the filmmakers employed real explosives buried in the sand to simulate landmines and improvised charges. These weren't carefully calibrated movie pyrotechnics. Several were so powerful that shockwaves kicked up clouds of dust large enough to obscure the set. Nicholson and the supporting cast performed within shockingly close range of these detonations, relying entirely on the timing and precision of the special effects team. Any misfire could have caused severe injury. Additionally, background firing scenes involved real gunfire aimed at distant metal and wood targets to produce authentic sparks, ricochets, and impact debris. While actors weren't positioned near these live fire areas, the unpredictability of desert wind and the possibility of rounds glancing off rocks made the setup far riskier than intended. The finished film may seem understated compared to explosive war epics, but the danger behind its production was every bit as real and far more reckless than the audience ever realized. Fact 10. The Siege of Firebase, Gloria 1989. Shot in the Philippines with a cast and crew already surrounded by real military activity, the siege of Firebase Gloria embraced a level of authenticity that bordered on reckless. To simulate the intensity of Viet Cong assaults and counterattacks, the production used actual high-yield explosive charges buried around the Firebase set. These charges produced enormous shockwaves, powerful enough to send dirt and debris flying well above the actors' heads. R. Lee Ermey, who starred in the film, insisted that war movies should feel chaotic and frightening, and the production team took this direction literally. Several explosions detonated so close to performers that their uniforms and gear were coated with real dust and shrapnel from the blast. Some actors even recalled feeling the ground tremble beneath them right before the effects team triggered a detonation. Adding to the tension, crew members reported that certain wide shots used real machine gun fire into distant terrain to create authentic muzzle flashes and echoing sound effects. Though these bullets were never aimed toward the cast, their presence on set introduced a danger level that modern Hollywood regulations would instantly shut down. The resulting visuals were undeniably raw and visceral, but achieved by placing the cast and crew in genuine combat-like conditions. Fact 11. The Iron Triangle, 1989. Another Vietnam War-themed production filmed in the Philippines, The Iron Triangle sought a documentary-style realism that led to some alarming creative choices. Many of the firefight scenes involved military-grade explosives buried in the jungle floor, creating eruptions far more violent than what traditional movie pyrotechnics would normally permit. Actors, including Beau Bridges and Johnny Messner, often performed their scenes surrounded by these live charges, sometimes unaware of exactly when or where the next explosion would trigger. Crew members later admitted that timing errors caused several blasts to ignite closer than planned, showering nearby performers with dirt and burning vegetation. But perhaps the most dangerous element was the use of live tracer rounds in certain nighttime background shots. The glowing streaks visible on screen were not visual effects. They were real bullets fired into deep jungle to capture the brilliant arcs and ricochets characteristic of battlefield firefights. While the actors remained far from the firing line, tracer rounds are notoriously unpredictable, especially in dense foliage where they can bounce erratically. The film achieved the gritty, immersive tone it wanted, but at the cost of subjecting the cast to genuine battlefield hazards. Fact 12. The Expendables, 2012. Though a modern blockbuster with access to the best digital effects available, The Expendables 2 became infamous for its shocking use of full-power pyrotechnic charges and real heavy weapon effects during action sequences. In a quest for practical realism, the production mounted explosive devices on boats, vehicles, and bridges, some of which were strong enough to destroy full structures in a single blast. During the filming of the massive river assault sequence, stuntmen were placed dangerously close to high-yield detonation setups. The charges were so intense that several cameras were damaged by water pressure and debris. Tragically, the film's commitment to realism resulted in a fatal on-set accident when a boat rigged with explosives misfired, leading to a stuntman's death and another's severe injury. In some scenes, the crew also used real blank-firing heavy weapons with forceful recoil and muzzle flash characteristics nearly identical to live ammunition. While these weren't loaded with real bullets, the sheer power of the weapons made the environment extremely hazardous. The Expendables 2 stands as a modern reminder that even with advanced safety measures, the pursuit of gritty, practical action can lead to devastating consequences when the line between simulation and reality is pushed too far. Fact 13. The Killing Fields, 1984. Although remembered primarily as a powerful historical drama, The Killing Fields operated under conditions far more dangerous than many war films. Shot in Thailand, the production leaned heavily on real military explosives obtained through local suppliers to recreate Khmer Rouge battlefield chaos. These were not weakened or toned down for film use. Several charges were strong enough to blow apart full wooden structures and send debris hurtling long distances. Actors, including Sam Waterston and Hang S. Ngor, were often positioned close to these detonations to capture raw, instinctive reactions. Crew members later admitted that several explosions went off harder than planned, causing genuine fear among cast members. Some ground charges erupted with such force that the shock waves could be felt across the entire set. In addition, certain background gunfire sequences relied on live tracer rounds fired over large open fields. These rounds created the iconic glowing arcs seen in the night scenes, but they were real bullets traveling at lethal speed. Even though they were aimed away from people, the decision to fire live ammunition near a working film crew demonstrates just how far the production was willing to go for authenticity. The film's realism is undeniable, but it was achieved by exposing its cast and crew to live-fire risks seldom acknowledged in public. Fact 14. The Wind and the Lion, 1975. This epic adventure film, starring Sean Connery and Candice Bergen, featured large-scale battle sequences that relied on authentic explosive charges and genuine military-grade equipment. Filmed in Spain and Morocco, the production not only used real period-accurate rifles and cannons, but also equipped many of them with live black powder charges strong enough to cause serious injury if mishandled. During the film's cavalry attack scenes, explosions were triggered across the desert floor with far greater force than typical movie pyrotechnics. Several stunt riders later discussed how the blasts were so powerful that they startled the horses, causing dangerous, unpredictable movements. Riders and actors alike were often thrown off balance by the concussive force or the sudden eruption of sand and smoke. For wide shots involving heavy weapons, the crew used live projectile artillery blanks, which generated real recoil and muzzle flash. These devices created a level of battlefield authenticity rarely seen in films of the era, but also introduced a level of hazard that today's productions would consider unacceptable. Despite the sweeping romantic tone of the final film, many of its most iconic action shots were created under conditions closer to real combat than Hollywood fantasy. Fact 15. Salvador 1986. Oliver Stone is no stranger to extreme filmmaking, and Salvador remains one of his most hazardous productions. Shot in Mexico, the film attempted to recreate the brutal intensity of the Salvadoran Civil War. To achieve this, Stone pushed the effects team to use true military-grade explosives during urban combat sequences. These blasts were not lightweight movie pops. They were potent enough to blow apart cars, storefronts, and entire sections of fabricated city blocks. Actors James Woods and James Belushi performed scenes while debris rained down around them, with several explosions detonating startlingly close to their positions. Crew accounts reveal that timing errors occasionally caused charges to ignite only seconds before or after the actors expected them, creating moments of genuine chaos and fear captured on camera. In nighttime sequences, the production used real tracer ammunition fired over rooftops and into distant terrain to replicate the authentic look of active conflict. These glowing streaks, though visually stunning, were live rounds with unpredictable trajectories, especially dangerous in dense urban environments where ricochet risks are high. Salvador achieved a gritty documentary energy unmatched by most Hollywood films, but it was earned by exposing the entire production to levels of danger far beyond industry norms. Bonus fact: the Battle of Algiers, 1966. Long before Hollywood embraced gritty realism, the Battle of Algiers broke every rule in the book by staging sequences so authentic that many viewers still mistake the film for a real documentary. Shot in the actual streets and alleyways of Algiers, the production used true military explosives during several of the bombing and riot scenes, far more powerful than anything typically allowed on film sets, even in the 1960 seconds. Director Gillo Pontecorvo worked closely with former resistance fighters who had first-hand experience with urban warfare. These advisors insisted that to capture the true brutality of the conflict, the explosions needed to behave exactly as they did during real insurgent attacks. As a result, the pyrotechnic team built charges strong enough to shatter windows, blow apart storefronts, and send debris scattering across crowded streets. Extras and actors were often positioned frighteningly close to the blast zones, with only minimal shielding. Even more shocking, several scenes incorporated real gunfire, discharged into distant open areas to capture authentic echo patterns within the city's stone architecture. While the actors weren't in the line of fire, the sounds and muzzle effects seen on camera came from actual rounds being fired, not blanks, and not post-production audio. The authenticity was so convincing that governments worldwide used the film for military training. Yet the realism audiences praised came at a cost. Many of the people seen running, diving, or screaming in fear were reacting to explosions powerful enough to cause genuine injury if anything went wrong. The Battle of Algiers remains a cinematic masterpiece, but also a testament to how far filmmakers once went to recreate real conflict, placing their cast and crew in the kind of danger that modern productions would never permit. Behind every explosion, every burst of gunfire, and every chaotic battlefield moment in these films lies a truth far more dangerous than what appeared on screen. Real ammunition, real explosives, and real-life risks were woven into the fabric of these productions, creating scenes that felt authentic because they were authentic, sometimes terrifyingly so. If this deep dive into the hidden dangers of action filmmaking gave you a new perspective on the movies you thought you knew, make sure you leave a comment telling us which film shocked you the most. And if there's another overlooked or unbelievable story from the world of action cinema that you want us to uncover next, let us know down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss the secrets, the risks, and the untold stories that shaped the action genre. This is Action Undone, where the truth behind the action is always more explosive than the scenes themselves.